inside you. But basically, like we have the sun in the sky, we have the path that inner space takes is you have you, and then you have your organs, maybe your brain or your heart, both very electromagnetic. Then you have the cell, maybe your brain cell. You have what's called your mitochondria, which are the engines of your cell. Then you have electron chain transfer within your mitochondria, and then you have the electron. So now you know kind of the path. And when I say that, I mean like a Russian doll scenario. So if you've heard the word fractal before, I think in terms of fractals. So when I say a level down, I mean a fractal level down or a level in. So what's inside the cell is the mitochondria. What's inside the mitochondria is the electron chain transfer, and what's inside the electron chain transfer is the electron. And what does the electron look like? It looks like the sun. So now you see the as above, so below concept in full effect, because you can look out and you can see what powers our entire food web and all the life on this planet comes from the sun in the sky, outer space, and all the life on your planet, being you, comes from the sun inside you, called the electron. And people just don't know near as much about the inner space as the outer space. And health, optimal health, is when the little sun talks to the big sun and they communicate well. They talk through light. So, and you are the expression of that light conversation between the big sun and the little sun. So when I talk to people about health, I tend to talk about charge. Charge is light. All charge is also light, is also electric. That's why they call it an electron, because it is electric. But the missing piece of this whole story, both in outer space and inner space, is magnetism. If you hear electromagnetics, or EMFs, people say that word a lot. Electric and magnetic go together, always. So the feminine aspect, if you like aspects, would be magnetism would be the feminine, and the masculine aspect would be electric. And that's why I titled that blog Magnetic Feminism, because my perspective on magnetism is that it is the field that electric is expressed in. Meaning it is the unseen foundation of electric expression. It gets very little credit, but it is the absolute foundation. It's very misunderstood. So it is the egg, essentially. So everything that has a magnetic field. So in astrology, you understand, or I tend to understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think of the sun as the big clock, because time is all dictated by cycles. So in astrology, you have cycles and cycles within cycles and cycles affecting other cycles with various clocks that overlap at different times. This is how I envision it when I see the solar system overlapping. And those overlaps of time create scenarios that are somewhat predictable. This is why me as a Cancer, I become somewhat predictable based on the time overlaps of what the place I was born. But the time I was born, the time space. So time and cycles correlate. So light cycles, and I look at the sun as the big clock, and then all the planets are operating their own clock subject to the big clock in our solar system. The same process is happening within you. So your big clock, your sun, I would say, would be inside your head, and then your body has all various clocks, various organisms set to different times. And she mentioned my big thing is circadian biology, which means time biology. Meaning that in health, my perspective has much more to do with when and where before I ever ask what. So a very commonly held idea is a hormone like melatonin, which is a nighttime hormone. It's expressed at a certain time. But now time and light correlate. So I'm saying time equals light. That's how we tell time, is by light cycles. So light communicated to our bodies tells our bodies what time it is and what time to express various chemicals and hormones, like melatonin. You have lots of hormones. They're all on clocks. all the clocks in your body need to be calibrated, and they're calibrated to what? The sun, which is why light cycles matter. It's also why I turn the lights off in this room. Because when I talk to people about health, I talk to them about the big sun and the little sun, and both those, the things they have in common is they both express light. The little sun, called the electron, expresses light, and the light that it expresses is called quanta. And that's where you get quantum physics from. What is the light it expresses is quanta, but it's also, what does it look like? Sunlight. Because light is light is light. Sunlight and the big electron called the sun, the quanta it expresses is called sunlight, and that sunlight changes through as the earth spins. It's different throughout the day. Meaning the light that's shining in here right now is different than the light that was shining this morning. Well, it's different, but it communicates different information to your body, telling your body what time it is to express its hormones and chemicals properly. If you get the right time, you get the right expression. Now, if that makes sense. So that's why do I shut the lights off in here? Is because I want us to get natural light equating to natural time to tell our bodies what time it is. So when everybody here goes to go to sleep, their bodies will know it's time to go to sleep, because you'll have received the light information telling you what time it is and that your body should be winding down. So right now this natural light contains far more red than blue. So if you've heard now about our technology and our screens being very, very blue lit, it's in opposition to natural time that would be in nature, where red offsets blue in nature. So natural light, we get more red, and red is healing. Now, so far, it's been, 5-10 minutes, and I've skipped around from quantum physics to health to the solar system to circadian biology, right? So please tell me if I'm losing you. What I'm trying to do is to correlate certain things in terms of light and time, correlating, light and electricity, correlating. And I'm trying to explain how you're electromagnetic and how those electromagnetics are expressed within your body. So what happens is, now that you know the path that the electron goes, your brain or your heart or any other organ, then the heart cell, the heart cell mitochondria, the electron chain transfer within that mitochondria, and then the electron. That electron expressing its information is also not fixed, the same way the sun's information is not fixed. The light that it expresses changes. If you've ever heard people talk about intention, or how thoughts create your reality, and how thoughts create your world, it's true, but if I know that New Zealand exists, but have no way to get there and no idea where it is to get there, it's not very useful information to me. So I try and tell people, we need to understand the path that light walks to understand how to manipulate it to our own intention. Because that's what we're really doing, because the physical world is light converted from quantum states, meaning very volatile, simple photons, into very complex, denser states, like this. So I've got my water. Water is closer to quantum than this is. This is denser. The water is very programmable. This is less programmable. So now my intention can affect the water more than it can affect this, because it's closer to quantum. Water is the substance of life because it is the membrane that separates the quantum from the chemical. It's the divider. So what water's made of is H2O. It's H being hydrogen, which is the first element on the periodic table. It contains one electron, just one. Meaning it's light in its simplest elemental form. That means it's very close to its origin source of absolute quantum, the all, the sea of universal consciousness. It's unmaterialized. You could call it God, you could call it universal consciousness, but it's essentially the quantum realm that light is expressed from as a photon, then into an electron, which has a magnetic field and electric. contained within that magnetic field. This is the process that light takes to densify itself and complexify itself into the world we live in. So anyone who's talking to you about energy work or intention or manifestation needs to know the path that light takes and how it walks so that it can navigate in this world. Because just knowing the words is not enough. We have to actually know the actual mechanisms. And so far, everything I've said, hopefully, is not questionable science whatsoever. So it's not woo if you can explain it. Now this is important for people to be armed with information so that they can actually establish themselves as legitimate intention and energy workers. I tell people, well, if you work with the intention and energy, what is energy? Because I know all energy is electromagnetic. And I know how to reference it in terms of how it's expressed in the body. So these are important tools for people that are into maybe alt health or different things like that. So I'm trying to kind of take you step by step through these different processes of electromagnetics. So a magnetic field is like a bubble. So an electron sits in an orbital, or you have an aura. Have you ever heard that? Mm-hmm. Your aura is your magnetic field. You got a north pole and a south pole. When you stretch a magnet out, the electric charge of that will go like this. Mm-hmm. So where that overlaps on your magnet, those overlapping fields, those are called chakras, or energy vortexes, because it overlaps. So where it overlaps, you've got double the power. Then it splits back. It's also like the caduceus, or the medical. You've seen the kundalini energy that flows upward. Well, that's energy. It's electromagnetic. So that's how it works. So all these historical things can be validated through the understanding of what electromagnetics is. So your aura is your magnetic field, and you leak light, essentially, because the electrons go through your mitochondria, power your cells, power your organs, power you, and then your light expresses itself. So light retention, or electron retention, being your negative charge, your net negative charge, equates to how much life your body holds. So a dead body and a living body are the same chemicals. One contains light, one does not. It's very important that we understand what light is and what energy is, because then we'll understand what health is. We'll also understand how the fractal levels of you as an Earth, our Earth, and then our solar system, how they all connect and how they all work. Because you have an electromagnetic field that's affecting its environment and being affected by its environment all the time. We're affecting each other's magnetic fields right now. The person you're sitting next to has more of an effect on you than the person across the table from you. That's electromagnetics, but guess who never gets any play? The mother magnetism. I tell people it is not Mother Earth, it is not Mother Nature, it's Mother Magnetism, because magnetism is the invisible canvas that electric is being paint, or the visible part of the painting that everybody sees, is painted on. The result of those two forces when they come together is nature. And we are nature. We are the child of electric and magnetic. So this is how all of life occurs, and it's dynamic. So nature is dynamic and ever-changing, but it is always a result of electromagnetism. So people talking about climate change, for example, should be talking about those two forces to understand why the climate's changing, how it's changing. Has it always changed? Yes, it has. How has it always changed? In cycles. Because you guys know everything goes in cycles, right? Is it good or bad? You talk about, is my sign good or bad? It's just like it's 3 on the clock, good or bad. Is 3 o'clock good? Well, it's bad. That depends on what's happening at 3, you know what I mean, or if you like the number. But there's no good or bad at that. You just need, but the power comes from knowing what time it is. Well, if I tell you magnetism has a cycle, and I can tell you, well, you can know what time it is based on that cycle. And I told you all of electric or light is expressed within a magnetic field. then all of light's expression is contingent on what time we are in that magnetic cycle. And it's also affected by what? The sun's magnetic cycle, because the sun's expression is also dictated by its magnetosphere. Sun's magnetosphere is bigger than the Earth's. Big sun, little Earth, right? It affects the Earth. They compete during the day. They do not compete at night. Why? Because the magnetosphere is not facing the sun. It does not compete. What happens at night inside your head? The light you're supposed to light up at night, the inner light will turn on as the outer light goes down. This is how the cycles are supposed to go. They don't go that way if you have light at night that's fake light, because you don't have night when there's light. So if you want to turn on your inner light, you've got to turn off the outer light. These are cycles that happen with you, that are intimately tied to the cycle of the planet, day and night, going back and forth. So meaning, the magnetism that affects you in your sleep state is different than what happens in your waking state, because the sun is not competing with the magnetosphere. Meaning magnetism itself changes based on time of day. Very unique idea. You won't hear it very much anywhere, because scientists tend to not study cycles. They tend to study absolutes, cause and effect. They don't ask when, which is a big problem, because based on where I started with this talk, if I measure your melatonin, is it going to be the same 24 hours a day? We measure at the wrong time, we say, oh, you have no melatonin, your brain's broken. We better inject you with melatonin right away. Well, if you measure it at the time that it's expressed, oh, you've got plenty of melatonin. So now I'm making that simple, seemingly unarguable analogy, change the word melatonin to magnetism, and see how simple science is missing the question of when. But luckily, you guys understand all you talk about is when, right? When are we? That tells us where we are. When are we? Meaning when in the cycles. Because we know time is just correlated to cycles, within cycles, within cycles. And the more you know about the cycles and the forces that dictate those cycles, the more you know about this moment, right now. That's where magnetism in electric, being light, expressed within a magnetic field. That's life itself. Now I can make this whole story, if you'd like. I could speak it to you in terms of the Son of the Sun, or the Son of God coming down incarnate, if you'd like me to speak it in Christianese, or I could speak it in quantum physics and have it be light coming down through quantum expression into your eyes and your skin, down to the subatomic level. I could speak it in astrological terms as well. Doesn't matter, because I know words are just containers for meaning. The meaning is what's important. So it just depends. I'm just really focused on people understanding the process. I don't care what language I speak it to them in. Doesn't matter to me at all. I'm not hooked on the containers. It's the water inside the bottle I'm worried about. It's just kind of my focus with all these different ideas. Yeah.
One thought that keeps coming for me is the torus. Mm-hmm. The energy of the torus energy. Could you say that that's part of this electronic?
Yes. So that's
magnetic field.
When you see that torus, what runs down the center there, that donut springs out of, is the electromagnetic pole. See, what we miss out on is that I tell people songs are made of notes, notes aren't made of songs. True? So if you want to build a note, you don't use songs to do it. But if you want to build songs, you use notes to do it. Well, what's the problem? Our five senses are songs, made of the notes of electromagnetics. So can we use our senses to measure these things? Not at all. Very rarely. Meaning visible light, we can measure visibly, right? Sound, frequency, by the way, visible light is frequency, sound is also frequency measured by our ears, converted in our brains. This says light frequencies converted in our brains, right? Different forms of frequency is what our senses pick up, but they only pick up a tiny little fraction.
The small bandwidth.
Yeah. Very tiny. So visible light versus frequency of light is completely different. Same with sound. If you've ever seen a dog whistle, then you get it, right? Because we don't hear it. Doesn't mean that it's not there. They hear it. Why? Because they have different input. We just have our egos in place. So our egos tell us our vision is the right one. Our hearing is the right one. Well, it's conditionally right for the function that we evolved in. That may or may not be right now. That's why it's always changing. You see what I mean? So this is the reevaluation that we need to do as expressions of nature, as opposed to separating ourselves from nature by calling it Mother Nature. See, there is the magnetic field that is not visible. Magnetism is a non-visible force, but if you've ever stuck a magnet to a refrigerator, you know it's real. Okay? But you can't see it. It gets no play. So there is mother magnetism. There's father electric. That's the paint that covers up the canvas. But every painting that's ever been painted in human history started with what? A canvas. And I don't care if the canvas is a wall. I don't care if it's this big, if it's this big. You painted it on something. That something is the archetype of magnetism. The thing that gets covered up, the paint itself has various colors. What are those colors? That's the frequency. It's the information that communicates to our vision. Because paint is paint. If you're colorblind, paint is paint. So it's all paint. See, it's all electric. But it's the frequencies actually are the expression, the intricacies, and the expression of that. And that's where we blend different paints together to make new ones. Nature blends frequencies together. Electric and magnetic hook up, give birth to nature, and nature is a frequency expressed at different speeds in different calibrations. Okay? That's why it's always changing. The painting is always being adjusted. Constantly, according to what? Time. Well, time is dictated by light. Light is electric expression, so you see how this ties back to magnetism once again, because the magnetic field and the electric is a feedback loop that's changing the natural expression within it, that we are a part of. The separation from us and nature is our problem. Children treat their mothers horribly often, right? So if we think of Mother Nature as a separate thing from us, we can treat Mother horribly and take her for granted. Unless we're nature, then we've got a problem. We're raising a 4-year-old, me and Angela here, so I know, like when it's him, it's different. It's just mom, But when it's him, he doesn't know better. Us as a human race, we should know better, but many of us don't. So if you want to understand the psychology of the planet and the psychology of our society, look to nature. Magnetism goes in a cycle. Most people know nothing of this. The cycle of magnetism is very, very low right now. It has, and when it gets to zero, there's a pole shift. There's been about 9 of them that we know about so far. When magnetism is high, the amount of electric expressed within magnetism is also high, meaning life is high. Because life is nature, is the combination of high magnetism and high electric. Does that make sense? So when the magnetic cycle goes high, life on the planet is high and super abundant. Right now we are at the bottom of that cycle. My theory, and hopefully this is just a thought, and my theory is that our desire for all of our technology is a subconscious creation of what we once had in terms of a psychic ability. If you think back, and people that are older, that my generation is the one that I can remember when the phone was the dial. You know what I mean? Now, younger than me, they don't know anything about that. You know what I mean? There's no frame of reference. But whatever in nature, whatever we don't use, we lose. And so you can watch things as technology speeds through the roof. How fast has it changed in the past 5 years? That's how quickly we're if we're being altered neurologically in terms of younger generations, if you wonder how their brains work. But if you understand what technology is in its core, our desire to communicate better, all these things were ideas. But if I told you in dinosaur times the magnetism on the planet was 300 Gauss, people say, how the dinosaurs get so huge? How they didn't run out of food, right? Like life was super abundant on the planet in a perfect natural cycle, in natural order, 300 Gauss. Guess what we're at right now, approximately? 0.5 Gauss.
I have a question on that.
So,
Are you talking about the Schumann resonance?
Not at all.
Not at all.
No.
Okay, so something
Schumann
different.
resonance is a frequency,
Right.
goes across the surface of the Earth. It's kind of it's kind of the elevator music of the planet a little bit, like the background, but it's not necessarily a frequency that I'm referencing relative to the actual power of the magnetosphere of our planet.
How is that measured, the one you're talking
Gauss? They have meters and things to measure magnetism. They measured the pole shift by core sampling because there's cataclysmic events every pole shift. So they could just drill down and see it and go, oh, okay, every 178,000 years or so, there's approximately, you know what I mean?
Okay.
But no one knows anything about magnetism. Mom always gets forgotten about. Dad gets all the credit, you know what I mean, even though he's off at work, right? So it's like the sun gets a lot of attention here, whereas magnetism is the actual key to the sun's light expression. That's why what happens when the sun's magnetosphere takes over the weak Earth's magnetosphere, the sunlight expresses itself more intensely. So now you understand, like, if you want to understand climate change and global warming, then you got to talk about magnetic cycles. It's imperative, right? Now, am I saying that pollution is good? No, not at all. I just wish people would say the words pollution is bad instead of fear climate change. Because pollution's bad. No matter what, it's bad. Whether it changes the climate or not, it's bad. So why do we not hear the word pollution more? We're hearing climate change. Climate change, yes, it changes. Always has, always will, cycles. You can't stop the clock because it's convenient for you, no matter how hard you try. And that's why you can predict your astrology and you can think, I like this season. Can you stop it? No, you just enjoy it while you've got it because it's changing. Never get too hooked on any one part of that clock. And the clock is time. A lot of what I teach in terms of health is syncing your body's internal clocks with natural time. Natural clocks, that's circadian biology. That's when you sync yourself with nature, meaning inner space and outer space. Sync up, that's when you're in tune, that's when you're running perfect time, perfect expression. If you ever hear the word inflammation in health, I hear it all the time. Inflammation, inflammation, inflammation. Ask people, what does it mean? Please ask them. Say, can you define that? What's inflammation mean? I've never gotten a good answer for it. What I think it is, when I explain it to people, is I tell people, like, I work at a store, the trucks come in the back, and they come on a schedule. All the Mack trucks come and drop off products, right? If they come on time, there's order. If they all show up at the same time, there's chaos. Disorder. Dissonance. Things are out of time. I did not mention what was on the trucks. I just talked about the chaos as purely as a result of time. Poor time management, right, is actually the problem here. That's what inflammation is in the body. I did not talk about chemistry. Chemistry is a factor, but guess where chemistry starts and stops in the body? As it goes organ, it goes down to the cell, and then you've got chemistry and chemical energy it's called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which is chemical energy. It powers things chemically. That's a result of electron chain transfer in the mitochondria. So it's a result of electron chain transfer. What is electron chain transfer? Electrons are electric within a magnetic field called an orbital. They're the chain of events that they transfer themselves from one state to another, is what electron chain transfer is. So meaning those suns are converting themselves from simple to complex. Guess what the byproduct within your body of that process is? Within the middle of that chain, H2O. Are you often taught that you make water inside your body? Intercellular water is the membrane, remember, between the quantum and the chemical. That's why water is so special. It's why it's so programmable. It's why you're so programmable, because you contain water, and water's programmable because it's a quantum substance. Because it only contains one electron in the hydrogen. Just one. So it's easy to calibrate. As it gets more complex in its arrangement, it gets denser. Density states change the ability, the programmability, because what is programmable ability is the calibration of the frequency of the electron. That's where intention resides. If you really want to know the secret of manifestation, then understand that frequency alteration of the electron on a subatomic level is the space where your intention makes the most difference. So don't waste your intention on this, use it on this. It's important because it's not all the same. The material world, and people will say we're all made of stardust. They're right. Everything in the material world is a different calibration of the frequency and the speed of light, because light is a frequency. That's true. That's unarguable science there. So that's how we're all light. But the alteration of the calibration of those things, being its speed, and there's so many options. In the same way that if you think in terms of time, you can have years, hours, or years, months, hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds. How specific can you get? Nature can get very specific. Specific enough for us all to be different and the same at the same time. Things in common, things not in common. What are some of the calibration mechanisms that we've picked up on? Astrology, different frequency influences, right, from outer space, all affecting our inner space, what we're made of. Different times, different overlaps. Fractal intelligence is variation plus repetition. So what's the difference between noise and a song? All songs involve variation and repetition. Noise does not, by definition. So that's the difference between dissonance and music. Nature makes music. It's harmonic, ordered. There's chaos built into it. The best drummers in the world are the ones who keep time, leave it, and then come back. It's called a roll. If you've ever seen a drummer, they'll keep time, they'll leave it completely. Some of the best rolls are when they don't touch the drum set at all. They just stop and come in on the right time. Because it's the doing it, leaving it, and coming back to it. What is that? A cycle. What is the drummer doing? Keeping time. What's nature doing? Keeping time. What's your brain, your body, your heart, every tick? Time. What's time? Light. What's light need to exist? Magnetism. Mom gives birth to the whole scenario. Yes?
Would you say that part about sounds and noise?
Yes. So the idea is that we're always hearing noises, but we, for some reason, will say one thing is a song and another thing is a group of noises put together. The songs have variation and repetition, meaning they're fractal. Everything that nature creates is fractal, meaning that it has variation and repetition. Some people pick up on this, they call it sacred geometry. I just call it geometry. Call it sacred if you like, because nature makes everything with variation and repetition. So every tree is a fractal, but at the same time the repetition aspect of the tree is the roots and the branches. The variance is the various types of trees that are expressed within that categorically, and at some point we don't call it a tree anymore, we call it a shrub or something else. At some point. You see, this is our constructs. All lines of division are arbitrary and functional. Meaning that if we want to play a game, what's the first thing we do? The 4-year-old we want to play a game, what's the first thing we do? Here's the boundaries. If he asks, why here and not there? Just so we can play the game. Let's just pick one. This is out of bounds, this isn't. Why? Because it's just arbitrary, but we want to play the game. What's the foundation of the game? The canvas that it's painted on. We want to paint a picture. Where do we start with? Let's find a canvas to paint on. Where does this start and stop? It's up to you. I'll get back to the music thing. The sound aspect of it, because all these things, frequency shows itself in different ways. It shows itself with light to our eyes, sound to our ears. Frequency also shows itself to our mitochondria, which are subsensory. That's your sixth sense. That's your intuition. If you want to know how to tap into your intuition, get real comfortable with the word mitochondria. Because those are the antennas that pick up frequency that exists subsensory, if that makes sense. So you know these things are real when we affect each other, when we say that I don't feel right, this way or that way. It's not sensory. You can't explain it with your senses, tangibly. Is it real? Of course it is. Now you know how. Because remember, the notes build the songs can't build the notes. So it doesn't mean notes don't exist. This can't be measured the same way. That's an intuition. Then if you start to get clear about your frequency strength, meaning you raise your charge, your frequency will increase and your sensory abilities will increase with it. Meaning you'll get dialed in, you'll get clear, and you'll start to tune in. You hear people say that. Tune in to your higher knowing. Right? Tuning in is listening to the frequency receivers called mitochondria that are subsensory. That's what you tune into when you pick up on vibes. Vibes are frequencies. They're all real. Why? Because you're all putting out light right now. You're leaking light. Light is a frequency. You emit light. Is it visible light? No. Sometimes. Some people tap into that kind of stuff. Why? They're just tapping into the visible and non-visible components of the frequencies of light are not fixed. Is it real? I had a guy come out, test my house for electromagnetic dissonance. He had a tester like this. He could wave it around and it wouldn't pick anything up. But when he touched it, he'd pick up radio stations. And he'd let go and it'd go away. Because the frequencies were in the air, but there was no receiver to pick it up. But when he touched it, because he's fully electromagnetically powered, he's a receiver. So are you. That's what powers all your chemistry. Because you're electromagnetic. You're biotech. If you see these new drones that people have, what do they have on them? They've got an eye that they see out of. Got their wings they fly with. They've also got a receiver. And then their information gets shot off to the signal through the air to the person watching it on the screen. Right? My thought, we're in a room full of drones right now. Our consciousness is sitting somewhere with these drones are all electromagnetically powered. They're all EMF devices, frequency devices. They're also affected by frequencies. This is why if you go to my blog, it's mostly about, health-wise, the effects of non-native electromagnetic frequencies being Wi-Fi and tech. Now luckily, we don't have a bunch of young people here, meaning that your guys' brains are probably less frequency fried than them. So you can hear what I'm saying and nod and remember a time when everybody survived and there was no frequencies going through the air called Wi-Fi. The modern age is changing because of the frequency. Wireless is wired through the air that conducts. The same as light comes in, light's a frequency. You pick it up. If you get pick up a signal on your phone, you pick it up biochemically. You're affected by those frequencies. They communicate with your biology. I can explain to you cancer, strokes, heart attacks, anxiety, depression, suicides, diabetes, name it. And I will give you the electromagnetic frequency cause of that illness. Why? Because remember, all our bodies are communicating with frequency. Natural frequency. When they do 5G, which is very powerful Wi-Fi, and it's being rolled out now, in certain places they have to cut the trees down. Trees are nature's antennas. They put off a frequency. They're grounded tech. We are mobile tech, biotech I call it. Meaning that we can unplug from the earth, move around, plug back in. We're supposed to. Most people never do. Evolutionarily speaking, that's why we have iron in our blood and not magnesium. Plants have green blood. Their green blood has magnesium. It doesn't need to be iron because they're grounded and all the time and in the light all the time. But when we became mobile, we had to upgrade our biotech to iron because iron holds more electrons. Iron also interacts with light differently, which is why your skin turns red when you go outside and shine it in the sunlight, because the iron in your blood raises to the surface of your solar panel to absorb what? Frequency information about your environment, raises your nitric oxide, circulates the light throughout your body so you know where you are, what time it is. Now where's your food broken down to be carried throughout your body? In your blood. I just chemically changed your blood with light. Did I change the food? Sure did. See how that works? Everybody talking about food, not talking about food being a container for light. Nutritionists have a hard time with me. Because I ask them, where are you? Because I know Inuits up north eat a different diet than people at the equator, and they should. Why? Because the light environment is completely different. Plants eat light, convert it into sugars. It's called fruit. So if you're in a low light environment, then the plants don't eat the light. If you're up north with a bunch of snow. So then you don't eat a bunch of sugar. Is sugar good or bad? Where are you? How much light you got? I've done talks on that. They're all online. I'm touching on some of the health concepts to bring it back around so you can start to see that you, nature, the earth, the solar system we live in, all the way down to your subatomics, are all connected in the same way all these planets circulating around affect each other. And the more tuned in we are to those different clocks and those different times, the more we'll make sense of all the things that everybody else who doesn't know what time it is thinks is weird. They'll say it's random illness. Illness isn't random. It grows. It grows in environments where our biochemistry is weakest. Know your environment. Right? Thank you. So that's the health takeaway of this. You, hopefully, based on what I've said about the deep tech, the deep electromagnetic frequencies that are you, and every thought that goes through your head is electromagnetic and is affected by the tech in your environment. And also, I'm trying to go up for you to understand that the sun in the sky is communicating with the little sun inside you. That's a frequency conversation. You need to tune into both. Don't be scared of the sun and don't be scared of your electrons. Get to know them both, and you'll be the optimal version of yourself. It's kind of the direction. Yes, also your consciousness will increase dramatically because that's a charge thing. So all the stuff that people tend to give credit to aliens for was done by high charge humans when magnetism was high. Back in the cycle, because we could do more, because our charge was higher. Very simple. So, yes.
I had a question about sun gazing. I had a friend that was introducing a man that was a engineer from India, and he never in any of this woo-woo. And then somehow or another he got introduced to this ancient yogic art, which is sun gazing.
Yes.
So he studied it and presented it to us as not a woo-woo thing, but actually an idea for improving our health. So is there
So I tell my people to do what I call light calibration. This is looking towards the sun, not at it, 5 times a day, at 5 different times. Morning, mid-morning, noon, afternoon, and evening. 5 minutes, 5 different times. Why? Instead of 25 minutes at one time? Because the light information is different at all those times. And fake light gives you wrong information. So in the morning, I calibrate my clock. Then fake light throws it off, and I go outside and recalibrate it. Then fake light throws it off again, and I go outside and recalibrate it. If you never recalibrate, you're further off. Sun gazing, see, these holes in your head don't look out. Light looks in and projects itself onto your brain. You've never seen outside your own head. See, that's your brain you're looking at. Light looks in through the holes called your eyes. That's why guarding your light environment is so important. That's where letting light into those holes, sunglasses, contacts, LASIK, all these things. Sun gazing, I think morning light, evening light. You'll catch me looking dead at the sun when it first rises and when it's right about to go down. You won't catch me staring at it in between. That's important. Because otherwise, like, you got to respect everything that has power.
Right.
I'm not telling you to go out in the sun and fry yourselves to a crisp. You see what I mean? Like, it's the dose makes the poison, so it's important to understand that's where sun gazing is a mechanism of increased charge. So if your eyes are blocked and your skin solar panel is blocked, you're going to rely way more on food. You're going to hear people talk about diet all day long if 2 out of 3 of their sun intakes is blocked. Because food is just a container for light and water.